All right, Ed, very good to see you again. Yeah, from the past interview, our last interview, afterwards it just sounded like you had a little bit more to talk about. And so, yeah, I wanted to kind of just jump back into, your service and particularly what you were talking about in regards to the more traumatic, would you say traumatic, experiences that you had in the service?
Yeah, for those that haven't experienced any kind of loss or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously I wasn't part of any kind of special, spec ops teams or anything that sort.
Right.
But being in the surface side, the naval surface side of it, being stationed on a ship and not being deployed in a battlefield area.
Mm-hmm.
It's complete. It's a little. There's a little trauma to it,
Yeah.
for those personnel that, just even experiences that one loss, that one individual is not mustering anymore. They're not even accounted for anymore. They're
Yeah.
completely just gone. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I completely, I agree with you. I still feel like, experiencing a loss of someone that you know and someone that you're friends with, being in active duty and seeing that combat and seeing those lives lost a lot more often, it's a little different, but I still feel like, it's all a little bit the same. I feel like those guys who are in combat and see that, they see it a lot more often than guys like you, and I feel like they're a little bit desensitized to it, but even though they're desensitized, it still has a very powerful effect on people. Losing somebody that you've interacted with and that you've known, it just does something to people. It's really strange, and even not even death, even just losing a friend, and not even like you just kind of distance yourself and you lose contact with them. It almost feels similar to actually losing someone. I believe
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I would like if you would want to talk about those experiences. I would love to hear it.
From my first orders stationed on USS Arlington, we had a couple of shipmates that were lost, due to just personal reasons or just ship's operation, and luckily it wasn't those that were falling off off board while we were underway, but or deployed. But it sadly is when we had like those back-to-back operations where you come in for training, and then next the CO gets notice saying, hey, you guys need to come back out for these other operations that are going on out in fleet, and he tells personnel, and we're just not ready, we're being blindsided, but we need to support the objective. So once we go underway and we have that one day just to take care of our personal, home life, and notifying the spouse, the girlfriend, anything that we got going on, saying, hey, I need to roll out, or I'm not even able to get home because I only have like an hour just to get some supplies, from the next or anything like that, and then head back to the ship. And then those that are even on duty, they don't have that opportunity. So we had, in my time, 3 suicides. One that really impacted me, that one of my first semesters here, last year, I was in creative writing, and it was one of those, the class assignment was, can you write some kind of, something traumatic trauma?
Yeah, like a writing prompt, yeah.
Right, and it was just that. It was a shipmate named Georgie, He was his CTR3.
Mm.
He had this individual was awesome. Like, this guy he always had a smile on his face,
Mm-hmm.
and anything that you asked for him, he was always there for everybody. And you would just, it's always those, that they always say, it's always the one that always has this, smile on his face that you have no idea what's going on.
It's so strange.
And it was one of those times where it was back to back, going underway, coming back, going underway, and then we came back and we had a hard time. The crew knew that we were all having a hard time.
Hard time in regards, just being there and being on the
schedule,
ship.
Yeah, the scheduling. When you're having back to back underways, those are the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
A deployment is a deployment. You have 8 months, 9 months. If it gets extended, you already know it might possibly get extended, but your mindset is prepared.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have like these little short burst underways where it's like, oh, we're doing a month out, then you come back and you're like, all right, we're coming back for the weekend, we're going back out for 2 weeks. It starts to take a toll because now and then on top of that, when you come back, you might have a duty. And I don't know if you know what duty is, but it's when personnel have to stay behind while the rest go back to their families. And
oh, wow.
That few stay behind to take care of it's the minimal stuff to keep the ship running,
right.
To keep the ongoing duty 24/7 going, where you're standing watches, you're making security set, we have all the perimeter watches set, and then we're making sure all minimal evolutions are still going on within the ship, to making sure it's still prepared to going underway.
Yeah.
And that's just with regular maintenance or just little jobs of just detailing, even taking care of like the minimal stuff of repainting something, priming something, fixing equipment that's been broken while you were, gone underway out at sea.
So those guys who have duties, they'll stay there the whole time while everyone else goes back home?
Correct.
Until those guys come back?
Correct.
Wow.
So if it's a Friday, then you have a turnover duty date with the next individual. So if you come back from an underway where everybody's, we come back at 4, everybody leaves at 6 p.m., but you have to stay overnight, another night. And that's where I met Georgie when we were in damage control. Mm-hmm. This is where we take care of all the firefighting gear on the ship.
Right. Move this a little bit. Just want to make sure you get a little bit of a good feel. Okay.
I'll shoot this way.
Yeah. There you go. Okay.
But yeah, like we got to hang out a few times when we were off. When we had the schedules, aligned, we all got off together. We all, broke bread, had dinner.
Mm-hmm.
All the damage control guys, and then the damage control shop is made up of all the different departments that have to send personnel to support it.
Okay.
So we help out with all the firefighting gear, all the hoses, making sure everything is, according to the standards of how we prep prior to any kind of emergency happening.
Yeah.
And those, kinds of things. So it was nice getting to meet all these other different individuals and different jobs that you don't see where me dealing as an ABF, just dealing with fuel, dealing with testing fuel, operating the fuel and all that, general gas. But it was just one day, it was like after a hard underway, came back and I was walking in the P-way and I ran into him, and I was heading back to my berthing to get, my bag to walk off the ship. And I saw him and he was still in uniform. I was like, hey man, and I was like, hey George, you good? And he just looked at me and he was like, I'm all right. He's like, I'm good, Fuentes. All right, man. I was like, I'll see you. Told him I'll catch you later,
Yeah.
And it was during the week, so it was like a Thursday. It was like a Wednesday, Thursday, and I had to work the following morning. When I came back to work, everybody said, we have a guy, UA, on unauthorized absence. And we're like, all right, well, he was on duty. He was here last night. How was the guy missing? So everybody started looking, and he wasn't there. One of the chiefs last night, when he went to the smoke pit, he said that he heard a splash. And
where's the smoke pit on the boat?
It's the middle. It's in the middle frame of the ship. So like it was in the boat valley, and off to the side. That's you guys know.
Yeah.
So it's like in the middle of the ship. If you think of like a regular, like a cruise ship.
Yeah.
All right. So you have the center of the ship, and then you go out to the side where like you could see the outside of the ocean. If you leave any of like the middle center of the ship, you're able to exit and go to like the little boardwalks off to the side of the ship.
Right.
So, we kind of had that, and he just, while he was smoking outside, he just heard the splash from a distance, and he went off to the side of the ship, and he looked to the side. He didn't see anything, but he put note in that and notified the duty officer, the command duty officer that was there that night. The command duty officer passed it on to the CO, and the CO contacted divers that were stationed in Norfolk. They came over and they did a search underneath the ship, and they didn't find nothing. So the past 3 days, the MAs notified everybody else standing security watch, even myself being one of those personnel. They're like, keep an eye on the water, just seeing if there's, possibly a body floating. And then,
how did you feel, like, you being broke that information? Like, what did you think of it?
It's unreal. Like, that's not something that you tell somebody to take a look out for. It's not, it's unheard of. It's not normal. People say things happen, and it's one of those things that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. But you didn't really have any idea of, anybody, or you were just kind of like, this doesn't seem real.
It wasn't. And then finally, after that watch, the following day came, the fourth day. I got to the ship and I saw divers in the water. Everybody was stuck on the ship. They weren't allowed to get off.
Yeah.
I was just luckily coming back from training, from rescue swimmer training in the mornings. And the CMC, he grabbed me and he even escorted me onto the pier because nobody was even allowed onto the pier.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, something's up. And when I got to my shop, they were like, they found something. So then we got the call over the 1MC, over the announcements, and the CEO requested all hands in one specific area of the ship, the upper V. The whole crew, they all mustered up, and we all knew. From that on, we just knew immediately. So
knew that it was George.
Yeah. The CEO, he told everybody at ease, and then he said, we found a body about 30 minutes ago, and I gave him a couple minutes to identify, and they knew it was George.
How did the rest of the crew react?
Immediately when he said it, his whole department division, including the DCPO shop that was there, they broke down. All his closest best friends, the ones that he were living with, and I was helping him at the time, that kind of knew what was going on in his personal life, broke down crying.
Knew a little bit more than you think? Than you?
Yeah, like,
okay.
I'm talking about like that we're actually
living with him,
we're living with him
all
and
the
all
time.
that. We knew he was in a relationship, but I didn't know that she was deciding on leaving him and all this stuff. So he had some bad current events happening, and I found out that day from one of our other close buddies, which I understand. You know you don't want to disclose some of the personal stuff. So
yeah.
I was like, but I just wish where he started taking some blame for how he's like, I should have said something, I should have, and then up to where I grabbed him, and it's like, it's not your fault, you know, for not saying anything. You're just being that good friend of, you know, protecting him, everything. No one knew.
Yeah.
Because he kept a smile on. No one knew. He kept it hidden. He never told anybody. He never got help for anything. So, yeah.
And so how was kind of, so this happened in the middle of the week, near the end of the week was when they found him, correct?
Correct.
So how was kind of that following week of, you know, all the dust kind of settling and stuff like that?
The CO actually, it wasn't even back, it wasn't normal. It was like, some guys that really didn't know him, it was just, man, it was like, we still got operations going on 24/7.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to start knocking these next things out. So, like myself, I didn't want to put myself, and I don't know if this is normal, but I didn't want to think about that he was gone. Mm-hmm. So I stayed busy, and we just made the shop busy. Like, we just started making more tasks, and we started assigning more things, more duties, more just random weird maintenance items, like just weird things that just to keep your mind off of it.
Yeah,
and
that's perfectly normal. That is perfectly normal for someone, you know. I know somebody who recently lost a family member, and you know, he's having well, I mean, to be honest, I don't know how well he's doing in regards to that, because me and my friends, you know, it's a very sensitive, we recognize it's a very sensitive topic, and we don't want to, I feel like at this point he's kind of at the stage of he needs to kind of keep his mind off of that memory, that experience that he had, or else it's almost like he just kind of completely forgot about it. And I remember one time one of our friends kind of just very lightly brought it back up, and you could see him in his, like, just in his face, like he was processing the words, and then just I could see him in his eyes just reliving the whole experience again. But at first he didn't know what we were talking about. Like, he was like, what are you talking about? And then we kind of explained a little bit further, and then you can kind of see him, he paused, was processing everything, and then so, you know, in regards to that, I believe that, you know, keeping busy and keeping your mind busy, especially off of that traumatic experience that you had, that helps the brain kind of because that traumatic experience is so heavy. It's like my father refers to, he has PTSD. He refers to his PTSD as plastic bags in his rucksack. So you know, he stubs his toe, that's a plastic bag, just throws it in the rucksack. Just one plastic bag in his rucksack, and he's fine. He can still walk, he can still, you know, move and do everything. I don't clean up the trash, that's 2 more plastic bags. So it builds up over time until it gets so heavy that he can't hold it anymore, and then he just drops it. And that's when he gets into his, he doesn't get into outbursts anymore, or, you know, gets angry and starts yelling. He's been able to control that, but that's what would happen. And so I believe that, you know, traumatic experiences like that, you know, experiencing a death especially either in your own family or a very close friend of yours, that is the equivalent to, you know, a ton of plastic bags being thrown right into your backpack immediately. And so that's a lot for your brain to handle. And so it trying to process and handle that all at once, and just that being all you focus about, that can seriously mess you up. It completely disrupts how you think, how you live, and like how you move day to day. And so I think, you know, keeping yourself busy, and, you know, whether it's mindless tasks, whether it's something important or not, it's like giving your brain a bit of a break, kind of easing the load into your rucksack. So instead of a ton of plastic bags, it's 100 pounds of plastic bags getting thrown in, and then another couple hundred, and then another couple hundred. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that coping mechanism.
Exactly.
That kicks in.
Exactly.
It takes care of you.
Yeah. You know, it's very interesting, seeing how the brain deals with traumatic experiences, because that's something that I see, you know, like I said, you know, with my friend, because he's a very close friend of mine, and you know, I want the best for him, and I want him to, you know, get over something like this, but it's hard for me to, you know, help him, because like how do I do that? How do I help him feel better in a situation like this, where it's not even like in my control, it's not even in his control either? So how do you like deal with problems that aren't even in your control? You know what I mean? It's very tough. And you know, just hearing you talk about it, you know, it's getting like, I feel that emotion too. You know, just the way you express it, I could tell it, you know, really impacted you. And you know, I kind of like hearing you talk about it, I almost imagine myself in your shoes. Like, how would I even process something like that happening to, you know, someone that was close to me, you know? And, you know, so, you know, how was the experience of, you know, how long ago was that incident?
This incident happened in beginning of 2018.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, how has the process been of, you know, kind of dealing with that moving forward? Is it something that you know, reflect back on a lot, or are you still kind of in that mind of keeping your mind busy?
When it comes to like thinking of my fallen brothers and sisters, it's the day that I especially give them to is and give that respect is like Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. Like, I just make sure I give account for that one specific day throughout the year, at least.
Yeah.
To show my respect for that their life wasn't lost for nothing. It was for something, and even though if it was personal and it wasn't due to combat situation or anything, the load that was handled at the time of the ship and everything, he shouldn't have felt like it was all on him to where he couldn't carry it anymore.
100%.
So that's where, after his death, which was the second, I started learning and started putting in my leadership skills, where when I've gone to my next command, I started teaching the guys, you know, and start caring more for what's going on personally. So anytime that I had the opportunity to talk to any sailor and sit down with them and have that one-on-one discussion, not just to build that rapport, but to build that connection and say, hey, I'm here for you. You know, I'm not here for you just as a supervisor. I'm not here for you just to give you, you know, tasks and duties and to take care of what the job is, but I'm here for you, you know. And I want that to stand clear that this is not what it's all about. It's, hey, we're here to take care of you, not just Navy, but your personal life.
Yeah. So you said George was the second incident that happened.
My first incident was, and I'm laughing because he was our Popeye. It was our BM3 ward. He was the jokester. This was all on deployment.
Yeah.
I got to meet his mother. Fantastic woman, and his dad was phenomenal. I didn't meet him till afterwards, but during deployment, she came and visited every port we hit, and he hung out. And she wanted to hang out with her son, you know.
Wow.
But he still had the chances to hang out with the crew and go have a beer or two. And sadly, alcohol caught up to him, and they found Ward in the parking lot. They thought he was sleeping in his car.
Wow.
He wasn't breathing. I was the honor guard for him.
Could you explain that a little bit more? I've never heard of that before.
So I was the one presenting the colors to his mother.
Uh-huh.
I was the one, a rifleman, right rifleman. And YN3 Williams was the one that presented her son's flag to her. That was my first ever experience of a military memorial.
Yeah.
With casket and all. That was hard.
In what kind of way?
Since it being my first loss, you know, crew.
Yeah.
I got to do colors and got to ring off individuals that ring off the ship, and any individual that finished their time on the ship will be rung off. You know, they're given 2 bells, and you're whistled off. You know, and you're thanked for your service for the time that you gave back to the ship. This was the first time I've ever had someone rung off and wasn't there. That was hard. That was very hard. That's when it kind of hit me where, oh my gosh, we lost an individual that worked side by side with us.
After ringing him off and going through that whole memorial, did you ever get a thought of, hopefully this is my last one? Or did you have, maybe an expectation of, this may not be my last memorial?
As a young junior sailor, no, I didn't even.
Wasn't even in your.
It wasn't even in my head thinking that we would never even lose anybody.
Yeah.
You know, we were just there to take care of the ship, to make sure it was operating, for any kind of combat scenario, and then that's it. You'd only think oh yeah, if we're in combat, we're gonna lose somebody.
Yeah.
But
it definitely makes sense.
Not out of the blue where it's
you're maintaining a ship, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's very unexpected.
Yeah, and it's I was lucky enough to be on a ship where we only had a crew of 374
Wow.
individuals, where I spoke with other sailors that are like, man, I was stationed on a carrier, or an LHD, or all these other ginormous ships that I got to visit, but I wasn't stationed on there for years on, where it's just you have like 3,000 people.
Yeah, thousands
of people. It's literally a city, on water.
Yeah.
So you don't know the whole crew. You don't know. You don't get to have that personal connection.
Right.
So you're only close to the people that you work side by side in departmental with.
Wow.
Where my ship, everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
Everybody knew each other. So that we had a very close camaraderie when it came to that.
Yeah. When you talked with other sailors who were on larger carriers and stuff like that, did they ever have any experiences with loss of, crew members or stuff like that?
Oh, all the time.
I mean, yeah, I would assume, if there was three deaths for you and there's maybe 400 people, I wouldn't even imagine how many on a carrier like that.
Yeah, that's where we have a lot of our incidents where somebody would be blown off the deck, by F-18, and then now we have a man overboard. Sadly, to get the rib in the water, it takes a couple of minutes.
Yeah. And
the ship to turn around takes about a quarter of a mile, nautical miles, or maybe a half a mile to turn around, so. And if it's rough seas, and if we're doing night ops, it makes even the conditions even worse, where you can barely even see the individual in the water anymore. So That's where we get our sad incidents, where we lose somebody and they're gone.
Yeah. So, talking with the other crew members who were on larger carriers, I mean, since it's on a larger carrier, I would assume, because they don't know the crew as well as you did with your crew, was there any, was there a similar experience with those sailors, having, something as traumatic happening to them? Because what I guess I'm trying to say is, like, I feel like those sailors, although it was a traumatic experience, knowing somebody on their ship has been lost, do you feel like it may not have been to a larger magnitude because your ship was so much smaller and you, like, all the crew knew each other?
And that's where the CO decided on giving, like, the crew some extra time to catch up. Even for operations that day, he canceled and he just left duty section. Everybody was off that day.
Wow.
Because he knows, like, as being a supervisor, since you know how much of an impact this could make, I'm not gonna have you guys stay here any longer.
Yeah.
Go mourn for this person, but be back and be ready to operate,
Yeah.
and normally. On a carrier, one loss is not going to impact the whole thousands of individuals, because
Of course.
I might not even
Met the guy.
recognize or even seen the guy,
Yeah.
Or girl. They could have been working for supply all the way on the other side of the ship, and I don't even handle supply. I just deal with the pump from all the way back aft while they're taking care of front.
Yeah.
And I will never run into them.
Wow.
I might even walk by them and not even know their name or anything like that, because I don't need to.
Yeah.
It's not part of my job to know each and every individual like that. It's sad, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very difficult topic to talk about, and I do appreciate you, sitting down and, being open with me as you are. And you said there was 3 deaths. 3 deaths on your ship, correct?
Right after I was leaving, actually I just left. Strangely, it was a DC-3 Dela Cruz. She was having some personal things going on, which we kind of knew, but she ended up taking the choice to take her own life as well. And nothing, this was out of the blue. It wasn't near the ship. This was at her home, her own personal home. So that, she was one of the girls that I was able, to connect with. She was there for me for any kind of hard times, but she drifted apart when she had personal things going on, and we gave her time, and we continued operating as we needed to, and she said she was being transferred, and usually when they say that, it's immediate.
Yeah.
So we started thinking, man, she was transferred, but then we were noticed, we were given notice saying, hey, we lost a sailor, due to these incidences and everything outside of, off base and stuff. And
so she lied about it.
It was like she was in some kind of weird transition, and we were even told the whole story. I was actually told by another friend once I was going and that I was changing to my next command. I was messaged and people were saying, sorry for your loss. I'm like, what loss? who passed? And that's the way, sadly, how I found out.
Wow.
I wasn't able to attend anything. Everything actually was even held by the ship. Everything was passed on the civilian side. Her parents took care of everything.
Wow.
So, but that was not as traumatic for me, but it was just another sad portion of the day where it was like, like how many individuals do we have to lose based off like the lack of resources not there, or the lack of
support
of the support from the command, not being there for these sailors.
Yeah, I find it interesting that she went out of her way to lie about her transfer. I mean, I would think maybe it was just to put you guys at a little bit of ease, and maybe kind of I mean, I don't really know. Was that something that you thought about? Like, why did she lie?
She was an individual that really didn't stay on the honest side. She kept a lot of things deep down and hidden in her closet that was never revealed. And and it's sad that she didn't feel where she couldn't open up, just like how you feel, how I'm opening up to you right now, that she couldn't do.
Yeah.
And I just wish that she had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I feel like things could have been different.
Yeah. So it was more of like a, hey, don't worry about me, guys, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was her character.
Yeah, that is a really difficult situation because, it can be almost aggravating, because you were saying, she was there for you when you had your times of, hardship that, you were going through, a rough patch or whatever, and she was there to help you. And, I've had similar situations before, not of somebody that I've lost, but somebody was there for me, but when they were in need, they didn't want my help. It wasn't more like they didn't want my help, but they didn't open up. They didn't open up to me like I did to them. And so, that hurts on its own,
I just feel like those individuals that are helping someone else, they don't want to feel vulnerable, so
Mm-hmm.
they want you to feel like you could trust them. They don't, you know,
Yeah.
they don't want to give off that sense of like,
I need help.
yeah, like you already have your personal things going on. I'm trying to be here for you, but I don't need you to worry about me and what I'm going through.
Wow. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
You know, but so and now talking about it and with you and you being a student here um, at FGCU, a lot of these experiences and and this is why it's nice to talk
Yeah.
about some of these scenarios. It's you get to relate how you've
Yeah.
been doing, and what I don't see that often is those other students within our community here, our small community here, don't have the opportunity to do that relating and
100%.
don't have that opportunity to share, with those that have experience in a completely different environment that you wouldn't think like to put two to two together. It's like, wow, that emotion,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It wasn't the same, trauma, but it's definitely
The same feelings.
the same feelings, the same, that same space, that traps you to having PTSD,
Yeah.
and it's sad that they feel like they're alone,
Yeah.
where they shouldn't feel like they're alone. Nobody should ever feel like they're alone, and they should at least have that opportunity, to speak up, to have that opportunity to, not be afraid, to reach out,
Yeah.
because there's always somebody there to at least to grab that hand and, show that support or be there for them and be that shoulder.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And, it's a, I think that's a really good insight that you made in regards to, being able to relate to each other. Because I guess, thinking back to what I was saying about my friend who had that loss of life in his family. I feel like I had a hard time trying to help him because I didn't know what it felt like at all. Like I had no idea what was going on in his head. And it sucks because it's like someone in a burning building and there's a see-through wall that you can't get through, and you're trying to get through to help them out, but you don't know how to get through to connect to them. And I do feel like being able to relate to someone is something that is very it's not looked at hard enough. I feel like especially speaking from myself, there's a lot of feelings that I have or that I'll feel, and I'll have questions of like, is this normal? Like, is this something that people feel? Like, is this a normal way that people are thinking? And I overthink in my head and kind of get into a spiral until I'm able to talk to somebody about it. And when I'm able to talk to somebody about it, they recall the same feelings that they feel, saying, I'm right there with you, brother. Like I'm feeling the exact same way you feel. Because I feel like for people, being able to relate to somebody, it gives you that level of comfort. Like, okay, I'm not the only person that feels like this. Somebody else understands how I feel. And being able to say that, somebody else understands me, that brings a lot of ease and comfort to that person, 100%. And I feel like that's something that not a lot of students understand, and just understanding the idea of like, hey, I'm here for you, I understand you and I want to help you. I feel like, that stuff is out there. There are those people who understand, who are there, and who can help. But it's just the manner of connecting those people. There's people who want to help, who understand, and who can help, to those people who don't know where to find that,
Right.
But, it's something that I feel like I learn more about on a daily basis, just understanding myself and how I think and how, I approach problems and, emotional or psychological obstacles every single day. And also just seeing how other people, kind of handle their problems. I think, although it's a very difficult topic to, dance around, especially regarding, trauma and death and grief, it's something that I feel like you can learn so much more with how much you put into it. But at this point, I guess I'm kind of just rambling.
No, it's good. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No, it's the exact kind of route mindset that that should be shared.
Yeah.
But not too much thought into it. Too much of anything is never good.
100%.
Not too much thought into it.
Yeah.
But definitely to the point where everybody's basically on the same page and is able to, to grieve more and healthily. Not in the aspect of that
Thinking about
that
it all
solitude
the time.
and being and having it reran.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, so on Memorial Day, you spend time to, reflect and remember those that, aren't with us anymore. Is there anything special that you do on that day to, remember them by?
Well, it's just like as drinks, if you go to a bar or anything, any recent, fallen sailor, soldier, Marine, airman, anyone that across the whole board, if they've fallen, they'll put out a drink,
Yeah.
Any beverage out for the number
Mm-hmm.
that was fallen. And so for my 3, I always set 3 glass shots off to the side, and I'd leave them there off for the day.
Mm.
And I keep that off. That's my little, tradition.
Yeah.
And and then we go have dinner, and then I try to meet up with fellow vets, and then we share our stories and, share good times.
Yeah.
And I even get the opportunity to call up and check on some of my previous sailors that I've served with.
That is a good way to celebrate, I'd say. One more thing before we end this, I want to, since you were talking about, sharing the good times and stuff, is there any specific memories that you have between anybody, Georgie, or anybody else that you look back fondly on?
Well, since we were talking about Georgia.
Yeah. Jamaica George, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jamaica George. Yeah, the funny thing and why I'm laughing is he was the oddball,
Yeah.
and that's why that his humor came from. We went out, and it wasn't Bahrain, it was I think in Marseille, or it was on our deployment, and we were out drinking, and he had, like, when he'd get drunk, he would get like really warm, and you start leaning, and you know you start feeling
feel the radiation off of his body.
Yeah, and you would like feed off it, and then he would always ask for another one, and you know it was like, yeah, we were past that time, you know. But no, he was consistent. He was like, come on, let's have another one, guys. You know, no, you pass it. Now you go into a whole new level,
Oh my
and
God.
he was always like it to reach, and then. You know, heading back, we would all be, you know, muscling around and acting like who's the tougher guy, and then we used to like just jump all over each other, and you know, heading back to the ship, and just messing around, trying to act like who's, you know, basically not drunk.
Who's
you
the
know what I'm
baddest?
saying?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it was just funny as hell.
Yeah.
He had helped. I ran into my LPO, and it was him and it was D. I'm trying to remember.
Ding, 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 ding.
I just used to call him CTO2. I'm trying to remember his last name. Well, it's not him. Well, him, Jamaica, and then my other buddy Fig. Right, we ran into our LPO, drunk as hell, couldn't stand for nothing. We all had to pick him up, and we were dragging him. He was fighting us off.
Oh my God.
He didn't know who we are, what we were doing. Like, he thought we were like trying to smuggle him, and then this guy. So Jamaica was like, "Get him! Yeah, we got him! Bring him back! Get him!" So then he jumps on top of him, and he's like, "Calm down." He's telling AS1, "Calm down, calm down. Get off me!" He's grabbing him by the back. I'm trying to grab him by the arm. Now he's grabbing me by the shirt, and then the other guy goes around Fig, grabs him by the arm, and that's it. Now we're dragging him.
Was he kind of like a bigger guy? So was
he was a bigger guy.
God.
He was a bigger dude.
That's what makes it even more fun.
So we're pulling him, and finally one of the girls, you know, go to his face and is like, "Calm down, come on, let's go." And then he just calms down. It's like, oh, so a girl like had to slap common sense into him. So he was like, "Oh, okay." So finally he calms down, and now we're just walking behind him to make sure like he doesn't run off or do something else, you know.
Oh my goodness.
But that was a funny, good night that I had.
Yeah.
That I haven't talked. Yeah.
Had been a while since you've.
I talked about that one.
Yeah.
Fighting with AS1. And then when we got back, we all went back to our little quarters, our berthings, and I was.
You call them berthings?
Yeah. So, the berthing spaces were, you know, all our racks were.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then the cubicles had 3 racks.
Okay.
You know, 3 beds. And within the cubicle there were 6. So you had 3 on this side, 3 on this side. So you had 6 guys living right next to each other, you know, on top of each other or anything. So at this time I was sleeping on the toppest one. Little coffin racks.
Yeah, kissing the ceiling.
Oh, for sure, man. I couldn't sleep that night. I was so drunk. I couldn't get up into it, and then I got super sick. So I'm throwing up, and then AS1 came down. Oh, he was there at the same. Once I started throwing up, he got super excited about me throwing up. He goes inside the head, and he started yelling at me, "You can't hold your alcohol, this and that." And he's like smacking me in the back while I'm throwing up, and all the other guys are laughing outside and everything.
Oh my God.
I was like a noodle in the chair, like, because I couldn't get in the rack, so I stayed in the little living space. We had like a little table like this with like 4 chairs around.
Just slept in the chair.
And I was just just sludging, like, bro. So
could fall on the chair at any minute.
Like a noodle. Just,
oh
like,
my God.
I did fall a couple of times. That was in the beginning. Everything was spinning, but that was a good night.
Man. Wow. I feel like that's a good story to end it on. Yeah, you know, it's been a blast. Glad to finally end the interview once and for all. It's been like 3 weeks, but you know, hey, finally here. Thank you again so much for sharing your stories. It's been a pleasure to hear them, and just to, you know, just spit words, you know. So thank you for your time, and this was the Eagle's Nest. Thank you.